Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn at pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Yeah, Lynn Cullen looking for happy news. Anybody? Seriously, anybody? It's a gray day, and I'm trying. I mean, this is how far I'm going to reach. I have this feeling that I'll never again see a Broadway show because, first of all, it's hard to get tickets to anything you really want to see. And then the tickets are, they're just exorbitantly priced. I would say the same for the shows that are here. And again, it becomes like only people of means can easily see what often are just, wonderful, I'm sure, productions. I mean, I could, I suppose, spend thousands of dollars to sit in a cramped seat in a Broadway theater, but I won't. It goes against, it's not that I'm chintzy, it goes against my sense of, reasonableness, and also of, I don't know. So there's something on Broadway right now that I would so love to see, because I know that she is the most extraordinary of actresses and women. And is British actor Glenda Jackson. I know she's got to have Oscars, although I can't tell you for what. She's got to have Tonys, and in fact, I think she won a Tony last year. She's got to be in her 80s, I think, and going strong. And as if this isn't enough, she's been, I don't know if she still is, but she was a member of Parliament for something like 23 years. Not some House of Lords lady stuff. No, I mean a working member, I believe, of Parliament. Extraordinary woman. And she is now playing Lear, King Lear. She's playing the lead role in King Lear. And when I first heard that was, she did it in, I think, London 2 years ago to just rapturous reviews. And when I heard it was coming to New York, it was the first time in a long time I thought, ooh, I want. But, well, I read the review today in the New York Times, and it frankly sort of pans the production, but raves about Glenda Jackson. So, I don't know. I just wanted to say, if you don't have problems paying thousands of dollars to see anything, I'm willing to bet, even if it's a lousy production, seeing her do Lear would be incredible. It runs through July 7th. I mean, to be that, do you have any idea how exhausting it is to be a stage actor? To, I only did it, really did it once. And it was for what, maybe 4 or 5 runs, maybe. I think we did 5 shows. And I have never been so drained in my life. That is when, and I was doing it with true Broadway actors. It's when the Vagina Monologues came to town, and it was the Broadway touring company, but they had this gimmick that in each city they went to, they would employ, there was a 3-woman cast. They would employ the 3rd woman locally. And for some reason, they asked me to do it. I mean, there's lots of great actors here. They asked me. Maybe thinking again, that would, I don't know. This was years and years and years ago. And I had never had an opportunity to really rehearse because the other 2 actors came in from the last city they were in. So I was thrown out on that stage. And I think I was pretty bad. They were amazing. And I did one night hit it. It's so weird. And when I hit it, when I had it, I knew I was a good actor that night. And I thought, well, now you know how to do it. So just do the same thing tomorrow. It doesn't work that way. Every show, every second is the first time when you're doing live theater. It was an incredible, terrifying experience for me. But to be as old as Glenda Jackson and going on stage as Lear, which it's a 3.5-hour play, and the intensity of that. And she's such a great actor that she'd be in it and living it and doing it and raging, really, oh my God, against the gods and heavens. And I'm in awe of actors who do that kind of work. Oh, come to think of it, I did something once at City Theater with, and Billy Porter was also in that. He and I were both doing, I can't even remember what it was. We were both doing sort of guest cameos in some play. And he and I spent most of the play backstage talking. And in fact, talking about Lawrence Gaines, who was my producer at WTAE Radio and Doug's producer, and then became Doug's best friend without a doubt. And Lawrence Gaines grew up in the same neighborhood as Billy Porter, and Billy knew him well, knew his family well, and we talked about what an extraordinary talent he was. You know, I've been thinking about that a lot. How the assumption that the best talent makes it. The best talent is up there, and you know who they are because they're the stars. It's not true. I mean, yes, some of the people that are great talents do make it, but so many more don't. People with so much to give don't. Little accidents of timing, of right place, right time, and you can see that. All you have to do is go to any production locally here and see actors who aren't known entities, and they're mind-blowingly good, right? So I often think that we tend to not appreciate the talent that is local, and the assumption being that local talent, I guess this is as high as they could go. There isn't enough room at the top for all the people who could belong there just by virtue of their ability and talent. And that's true probably in everything. It's true in the arts, certainly. But it's probably true in, name a profession, name a, maybe there are some that are more obviously merit-based where the cream always does rise, but I really don't know. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just riffing to avoid talking about the news. I'm just meandering. Do you know my own family didn't come to see me when I was in the vagina monologues? I was so hurt. My father said, well, I don't want to. He didn't like the very idea of anything having to do with vaginas being on stage, and especially with me in it. Okay. Oh, wow, Mel writes, last year while I was in New York City, I went by myself to see Glenda Jackson. You saw her. It was a production of Edward Albee's Three Tall Women. And she did win the Tony for that last year, right? Also, Laurie Metcalf was in it. Yeah, Mel says Jackson was truly mesmerizing. I think my ticket was around $150, and I was sitting in peanut heaven, but it was worth it. Yeah. You know, a lot of those old Broadway theaters, the seats are so, they were built when the seats are so tight. And the leg room, so, I mean, you are packed. It is not physically comfortable in the older Broadway theaters. It is not at all. I remember the last time I was in one, I was sort of stunned by it. I forgot, or else I've gotten so fat I don't fit anymore. I don't know. Okay. I want to do an obit first because, you know, nothing makes me happier than obituaries. It's a woman I did not know of. Pretty incredible woman. She was a farmer her whole life in Oklahoma, I believe. And she died a week ago at the age of 87. Her name was Mona Lee Brock. And why would we know this woman who spent her whole life from the time she was a child on a farm? Well, because of something she did that seemingly was a small thing, just in her own little environment. It's what I think I was meandering about the other day, about how it's so overwhelming when we see everything that's wrong in the world, and you know, what can I do? You despair. And the answer, of course, is you do what you can in the space you are in. And if everyone were to do that, this is what this woman did. You have to go back to the 1980s. And as bad a time as it is now for farmers in America, 1980s was equally horrific and culled the numbers of American farmers by just extraordinary numbers. They were losing their farms left and right, declaring bankruptcy left and right, and they were killing themselves left and right. talking the other day about deaths by despair and how that is an epidemic in our country. Well, this was an epidemic of deaths of despair among this country's farmers. There was a huge crisis, some of it caused, of course, by our government. Federal policies changed that lowered so that we could be more globally competitive. This was when globalism was really hitting us. Well, it hit us here in the 80s as well with steel industry. Farmers had the same kind of experience. So federal policy lowered the prices that farmers could receive for their crops. And that was to make American goods, American grain, more competitive on a global scale. But it played havoc with the farmers themselves. And so they excuse me, so they were suffering from really plummeting prices for what they produced, and then rising costs of production as well. Interest rates on loans, that farmers rely on loans, interest rates on loans were soaring, and land values were plummeting. You couldn't find a more perfect nightmare for a farmer. Every week in this country at that time, 2,000 family farms were going down. 2,000 farms a week. That was the rate of this cataclysm. And hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of farmers were killing themselves. Mona Lee Brock and her husband lost their farm. It killed him. He didn't kill himself, but he died of a heart attack, her husband, right after. She eventually managed to buy her farm back, or another farm. I'm not clear about that. But as she saw her neighbors suffering and everything around her, she called a meeting of all the farmers in the areas to come over to my house. Let's talk about what we can do. What we can do to support each other. Excuse me. And after that meeting, farmers just knew to call her when they needed to talk. She was of their world. There was something extraordinarily warm and strong about her. And when farmers in her area were in distress, they would call Mona. So she ended up, word spread, and she ended up, her son tells, the phone was ringing constantly. And before she knew it, she was essentially running a farmer's suicide hotline. The son said the calls were constant. It was wild, he said. Farmers were going in and they were shooting the lenders. I don't remember that. And then killing themselves. And we were eating supper, and Mom would be on the phone with a farmer, and we all heard the gunshot over the phone. That happened to her many times. She would be talking to somebody, and she'd hear them loading shells. But she saved a lot. And she created a network where there was somebody in every county in Oklahoma, so that if she was on the phone with somebody, she could signal someone in her family to get in contact with someone who was close enough, and they would literally run to physically be with the farmer in distress. Now think of this. This is just somebody who ad hoc trying to help her neighbors. One night, she got a phone call, and it wasn't a farmer. It was Willie Nelson. He'd heard about the work she was doing, and they talked for over 3 hours. The next day, he sent her a personal check for $6,000, and the day after that, a week later, he sent another. And he kept calling her and kept talking to her, and then guess what happened? Willie Nelson, because of Mona Lee Brock's example, started calling the people in his business, saying, we got to do something here. And so Farm Aid was started. That's where it came from. Just a woman on a farm trying to help people. Willie Nelson called her the angel on the other end of the phone. Mona Lee Brock. That's a life. That is a life well lived. Farm Aid is, you may recall it. Is it still going on? I think every once in a while. I know John Mellencamp got very, very involved with it as well. Maybe they're still doing it. I don't know. Oh, here's a picture of Willie greeting her at a Farm Aid 30th anniversary concert in Chicago in 2015. So, yeah, kept going. Wow. Susan writes, I don't get to New York City for plays, but I find local college productions to be an okay substitute, especially CMU's theater. My calendar includes Pitt's production of Into the Woods. That's a musical this weekend. Pitt's Antigone next weekend. Oh, you really do it. CMU's Comedy of Errors the following weekend. Every weekend, Susan, good for you. Then 2 weeks later, she's going to the O'Reilly for Indecent. I'm just glad my husband's a good sport. Well, you're giving him some culture there. That's good. That's Susan from Hempfield. P.S. She says CMU's production of Cabaret in February was Broadway worthy. Well, let me tell you, if you get into the theater program at CMU, you're probably, as close to Broadway ready as anybody. That is one of the toughest programs to get into. I know one of my first producer here at City Paper doing this show, her daughter, who I watched grow up, is now in the CMU theater program. So she's got something going, no doubt about it. Okay. Well, okay, those two things are, I just so don't want to, you know what. I so don't want to. And you can't make me. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to give you some history here. It's another woman's story. It's a woman who was born in Africa, and her name was Radoshi. She came to this country and became Sally Smith. She didn't want to come to this country. She was a passenger on the last slave ship to come to the country. Do you know the name of that last slave ship? Why am I blanking on it? Excuse me, I'm getting away from my mic. We should know this stuff, right? I have it here somewhere. Oh, the Clotilda. That docked on our shores with its load of human cargo, including this 12-year-old child. Radoshi. And it docked in 1860. That's the last slave ship, arrived in 1860. Slave ships came to these shores for 240 years. She was bought and she was married off at the age of 13 to another slave. She said, she was interviewed later. I was 12 years old, she said, and he was a man. Okay, she was 12. I was 12 years old, and he was a man from another tribe. I couldn't understand his talk, and he couldn't understand mine. They put us on a block together, and they sold us for man and wife. And thus her life in America began on a plantation in Alabama. Because she came so late, 5 years later, she became free with the ratification of the 13th Amendment. So she came here, she lived through the Civil War, she lived through the Depression, and the extraordinary African-American author Zora Neale Hurston discovered her when she was doing research for her literary work, and she was doing research in the South and talking to slaves, former slaves. And amazingly, this child who was sold at the age, kidnapped and put in chains and sold at the age of 12, ended up also in a film that was released in 1938. And it was produced by the Department of Agriculture. I guess this would have been during the Depression's public works kinds of projects that they did. And the Department of Agriculture in the Roosevelt administration was putting out educational films. And this film was called The Negro Farmer, Extension Work for Better Farming and Better Living. And she ended up being interviewed in it. There aren't a lot of people who were on the last slave ship who ended up being filmed, also ended up being interviewed by the local newspaper. So there's a lot of the way I had that quote about how she was sold on a block with this man she didn't know and couldn't talk to, is because the Montgomery, Alabama Advertiser interviewed her in 1932. The reason she ended up back in the news, this was from a New York Times story, is because new research shows that she is in all likelihood the last survivor of the transatlantic slave trade, the last one. All the others who had come died before her on that last ship, the Clotilda. It had been believed that the last was a man named Cudjoe Lewis. He was believed to be the last living survivor of the slave trade, and now researchers, and the researchers are in Great Britain, they say that, in fact, it is not Cudjoe Lewis, although he'd be second. It's Radoshi. She lived longer. He died in 1935. She died in 1937. I'm looking at a picture of her. By the way, when the 13th Amendment passed, life for her really didn't change. She stayed on the plantation. It was the only home she knew. And that was not unusual. She stayed. She liked the people that had owned her. Her quote is, "We stay on the Smith's place where we know folks be good to us." I don't want to leave. Okay. Well. Oh, I'm sorry. There's a caller? Is the person still there? Wow. Okay, caller. Sorry.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi.
Hey, I just want to mention real quick. Did you see the previews of that movie, The Public?
The movie is called The Public?
Yeah, it's with Amelia Estevon, or whatever his name is. Alec Baldwin's in it. I thought maybe you saw it. It'd be something that looked like you would go to see. I don't know why. It's just, that one of those type of movies. It's about the homeless, global warming, and they're protesting in it. It's one of those type of movies. I didn't see much of it. I thought you'd know about it, so I don't know, but it'd be something.
You know,
and it took him 20 years to make his movie. That's how much time he put into it.
Who put into it? 20 years?
The guy that's half brothers with Charlie Sheen.
Oh, you're saying Emilio Estevon.
Yeah, that guy. He made this movie. He makes those type of movies.
Well, I think he comes, his dad is a very political guy.
Yeah.
And, so they're political. I don't know that that's a movie I'd go see because, as I said, if I desperately want movies now to take me away from all of that because I feel immersed in it all the time. It's not that I won't, but I tend to. I want people to make happy movies. That's what we all need now, don't we? We need happy movies that make us laugh.
Well, that's true, too.
Yeah, there ain't enough of those. But I thank
you.
Thanks. I didn't.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Okay. So, that horrible story about the kid, the missing kid. That was just these stories that come around that. Why would someone do something like that? You know what I'm talking about. This guy came up to a woman in Newport, Kentucky, on Wednesday. He looked like he'd been beaten up, and he was agitated, and he's saying, please help me, please help me. I'm Timothy Pitson, a boy who'd been missing since 2011. And, all hell broke loose. And why would someone do that when they know now that there's DNA testing? I mean, he ain't. What he is, the guy was, just got out of prison. And while he was in prison, he must have looked into this case. He just got out of jail in Medina, Ohio. He was 23 years old, and he was passing himself off as this 14-year-old boy. Why do people do that? Anyway, we have another caller. Caller? Yes? Hung up? Well, the guy who did it, and it's not clear whether he'll face charges. What would the charge be? I mean, it's another case of sort of taking up police time with a false story. I don't know. I'm not aware that he's been charged. But he was in, get this, here's what he was in prison for, this guy. They're called back. Hello, caller.
Hi, Lynn.
Yes.
Yes,
Well, the guy who did it, and it's not clear. You need to turn your
I'd
audio
like
down.
to.
Turn your audio.
I'm sorry. Okay, I got it down.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm an old fan of yours, and I've just discovered how to listen to you again, and I am so happy. I can't tell you how happy I am.
Oh, well, that makes two of us.
I listened to you in the 80s and 90s when you were on radio, and I never missed you. And then when you were gone, I couldn't find you. So I'm so glad to hear from you.
Oh, and I am so glad to hear from you. Thank you for finding me. I'm talking about this lost boy, and I didn't know I was a lost woman, too. You found me.
You were a lost woman, yes. Well, I just want to tell you how happy I am to be with you, and I'll be listening to you every day. But I don't want to take up the time because I want to listen to you.
Oh, you're too dear. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lynn.
God bless you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, jeez. Yay. Yay. Oh, that made my day. Ed writes, I saw King Lear. Oh my God, you saw Jackson and King Lear? I saw King Lear last month in previews. Whoa. And at the stage door, I told Glenda Jackson she was beyond superlatives as King Lear. Oh, you told Glenda Jackson that? Jeez, Ed. Jackson's diction puts so much emotion into each syllable. She gives a powerful performance, from imperious at the beginning to poignant as Lear becomes physically and emotionally devastated. I can't even imagine. Oh, wow. Hey, Amy, see if you can see how old she is. Find out how old she is. Wow. And see what did she win I know she's won Oscars. I mean, she has been an actor for so long. She's 82. Okay. Yeah. Unbelievable. And that she's got the energy to do that. And as I said, be a member of Parliament. What? So, I was telling you what the what this creep, the guy who got out of prison in Ohio and then decided he would try to impersonate this lost child. He was in prison. He was serving an 18-month sentence for burglary and vandalism. But get this. This is what he did to get that charge and then conviction. Police in Ohio said that this guy posed. He likes to pretend he's somebody he's not. What got him into jail is he posed as a prospective home buyer so that he could gain access to a $400,000 custom-built home in a Cleveland suburb. And then all he wanted the access for is he threw a party there that he promoted on Facebook, and the party goers cost thousands of dollars worth of damage. So hence you get, I guess that's burglary, they broke in, and vandalism. And he was sentenced to 18 months. He served 14. Did you get the Oscars she got? Did she get Oscars? Yeah? Okay, wait. Hang on. And oh, I don't want to talk about that. Let's see. We have I can't believe it was like a nightmare when I heard the name Herman Cain. Herman Cain? No! Do you remember Herman Cain? He was that hapless pizza shop owner who ran. Oh, wait. Okay, so she got a Tony for Three Tall Women just last year, Academy Award for Women in Love. Oh, the D.H. Lawrence. That was sort of a steamy thing. That was a long time ago. And then A Touch of Class, she got an Academy Award. I'm not remembering that. And she also got another award for a touch. She's just amazing. I think she's what? Touch of Class was 74. I mean, we're talking. So she was winning Oscars when she was a young pup. And now she's 82, and she's winning Tonys and playing King Lear. Women in Love. I'm remembering that as Alan Bates and who was that other big, strong-looking guy? Wasn't there a big to-do about a nude wrestling scene with the two men in Woman in Love? That's a long time ago. I cannot believe you talked to Glenda Jackson. Oliver Reed. That's it. Jeez, I can't remember if I, locked the door 2 minutes after I locked the door and hey. So Paul Krugman today has a, it's really, he really went wild today because he's saying, we already know what Trump's legacy is going to be, but he goes so far as to say that Trump's legacy will be that he will have caused directly or indirectly the premature deaths of countless Americans. Now, even I never thought of that. But Krugman thinks of it, and he explains why he says that. And in fact, it's a pretty good argument. He says, let's look at the deaths. There's already deaths caused by him. I'm thinking, he doesn't mention this one, I don't think, but I'm thinking of 2 children I know of that died in the custody of our government who were terribly ill. They were, one was 7, one was 8. A little boy and a little girl taken from their families. And they died, both of bacterial infections. They did not get care. Okay, so those are two dead we can lay at his feet. The woman killed, I mean, he says the rise, I think, let's put the 11 Jews at Tree of Life here. He would put them at Trump's feet because Trump's willingness to absolutely refuse to condemn the rise of white nationalism and, in fact, to feed into it results in, all of the deaths from these white nationalists newly empowered under Donald Trump. Let's lay all those deaths. The woman mowed down in Charlottesville. But then what he really wants to point out is that Trump's continued deregulation of all kinds of industries will result in death. I didn't even know of the most recent one. Apparently, he is wanting to allow hog plants where pigs are taken and butchered for our consumption. He wants hog plants to be able to inspect themselves for food safety. I mean, that is so unbelievable. Why do you think the U.S. government ever stepped in the first place and said, hey, sorry, you know what? You are not able to just butcher those animals and put them in our grocery stores. We're sending inspectors to make sure that stuff is safe, that your plants are clean, that certain regulations are being followed. Why does government ever get into regulation? Because the producers, manufacturers, the companies, the corporations have proven they cannot be trusted. I'm sorry about my voice today. Cannot be trusted because they kill people for profit. Well, Krugman says, yeah, why not? Let the hog butchers police themselves. It's not as if we've seen safety problems arise from self-regulation in industries like, the aircraft industry. As we continue to learn more and more that those two Boeing planes should never have been in the air. There was a true problem with those planes. We have learned that the Ethiopian pilots did everything they were supposed to do. It was a malfunction of the plane itself. The plane took over and wouldn't let the pilots gain control. The FAA, which I guess we thought did the signing off on new aircraft, what did we know? We find out that no, they let Boeing do it themselves. So Krugman says, yeah, and Trump administration wants to roll back rules that limit emissions of mercury from power plants. He wants to prevent the EPA from taking account of many of the benefits that accrue to us with reduced mercury emissions. No, Trump instead is warning us that renewable energy, like wind power, causes cancer, right? It causes cancer. But let's let power plants belch out mercury into our air. That doesn't do anything. You know what causes cancer? Coal burning power plants do. But, of course, Trump has it backwards. Krugman claims here, and I find this incredible because he doesn't tell me how he comes on this. He says, the Trump administration's own estimates say that its relaxation of coal pollution rules will kill more than 1,000 Americans every year. Please tell me that can't be true. His own administration has done the risk-benefit analysis for pulling back on the pollution requirements for coal-burning power plants and have found that what they have done will result in 1,000 of us dying every year, and they say, oh, that's okay. Krugman says if the administration gets to implement its full agenda, not just deregulation of so many industries, but discrimination against industries such as renewable energy industries, the toll will tick higher and higher and higher. So Krugman says, yeah, let's cut to the chase here. Trump's legacy, well, it'll be myriad, but a lot of people will die needlessly. Krugman says, so if you eat meat, or for that matter, drink water, or breathe air, there's a real sense in which Donald Trump is trying to kill you. Now, see, I think Krugman goes too far with this because Trump doesn't engage in the kind of thought process that where he would intentionally, it's not intent on his part. He's not even thinking of the consequences of his insanity. So what was I saying? I was saying Herman Cain. Jeez! So he wants Herman Cain on the Federal Reserve Board. Let me tell you something. The Federal Reserve Board has always been a non-political. I mean, it's not partisan politically. It might be biased to a certain kind of capitalist economy, obviously, but it has not been Republican-Democrat kind of bias. Well, with Trump, that is going to change. If he puts Herman Cain on and he puts this other loser he wants on, and there's no reason why they won't get on, right? Why wouldn't they? You got Mitch McConnell, just sending them through. Here comes another unqualified idiot. Send them through. Here comes another. They just keep going. They just keep going. So, Herman Cain. There's an opinion piece, the headline of which is Trump's next possible Fed nominee, be Herman Cain, can't understand basic policy issues, and then goes on to just eviscerate the guy. You may have recalled him. He was just one of those astonishingly idiotic people running for, there's a lot of them now. You know, did you see the guy who got in on the Democrat side yesterday? Was it Congressman Tim Ryan or something from the great state of Ohio? He was the one leading the charge to keep Nancy Pelosi from being the Speaker of the House. What do we need him for? Give me a break. Now, the odds are that a lot of these people who are jumping in know they don't have a chance, but their egos and, and wanting to raise their name recognition and hoping that they will be able to, do a Pete Buttigieg and somehow break out of the pack. Or, in fact, they're really not running for president. They're running for vice president or cabinet position. But my God, there's going to be over 20 of them. I'm exhausted already. And I want to say again, I saw a clip, with all this stuff with Trump's tax returns. Some network news show I think I was watching said, they were doing all Trump's, why won't he show he's the only president since Nixon who has not showed us his tax returns, or for that matter, only nominee who hasn't, except that's not true. And they said, no, there is one other. It's Bernie Sanders. And I had mentioned that the other day, right? Bernie Sanders will not, he keeps doing a Trump. He keeps saying, coming soon. And they played an recent interview with him where he said, hey, he was asked, you got your tax returns, right? I mean, it's not like you got to scrounge around. We all have a little drawer of files somewhere, right? Just hand them over. And he keeps he doesn't say I'm under audit like Trump does. He keeps promising soon. He's been doing that now for years. So, as we ask for Donald Trump, what is he hiding? He's got what is Bernie Sanders hiding? I'm asking. And I came up with an answer the other day. I said, my suspicion is he's hiding that he's rich as hell. Okay? That's my guess. The socialist is rich as hell. And that he has, I think, even more than 2 homes and other stuff. And maybe he's hiding that, in fact, he's not charitable. And maybe he's hiding, the very things that Trump is hiding. If you run for an office that high up, we, the voters, deserve to see what you do when we're not looking. Need to see if there might be a conflict of interest here or there. Something that totally does not match with maybe the rhetoric coming out of your mouth. And so I just want to say, Bernie, where are your tax returns? And I'm serious about that. He apparently is the front runner now. Give me an effing break. Um, okay, so I guess that's it. And I want to tell this wonderful old woman who found me again that I hope, I just realized I said effing, I hope that you're not offended, because now that I'm not on the radio, I have been allowed to use my often salty language because the FCC does not control where I am now. And so I am prone to say things I would not say on the radio, could not say on the radio. And I hope to heck I hope to heck that doesn't upset you too much, because I am prone to swear like a sailor. I just do. I'm sorry. So that's the part of me you did not know before. Anyway, you made my day. You made my day. Spread the word. And like me, right, guys? Like me on Facebook. Give me 5 stars on iTunes. I was thinking, even if you don't listen to me on iTunes, go to iTunes and give me 5 stars. Come on. We're all in this together. And I'm going to go try to find my voice, okay? Have a great weekend. It's going to be spring tomorrow. I can't wait. Don't overdo it, but have fun. I'll see you Monday.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.